Hi folks, welcome to the Gold Bug Stamp Mill at Placerville, California. My name is Keith and I'm going to take you for a tour of our stamp mill. This is a drawing, a sketch of what the original stamp mill looked like about the year 1920 or so, and it was dilapidated, falling down. In fact, the only thing that was standing here was the stamp itself, the 8-stamp mill. The building itself had actually fallen down and the stamp was holding it up. Welcome to the Gold Bug Park. My name is Keith and this is our 8-stamp mill. This was built here in the year 1900 by a fellow named Joshua Hendy, who had a foundry down in the San Francisco area. And in the late 1800s, he came up into the area and saw how they were crushing the quartz ore coming out of the mines and decided there was a better way of doing it, and this is what he invented to do that very task. It's an 8-stamp mill. There are 4 stamps here and 4 stamps over here, and the ore came out of the Silver Pine mine. Now that's the name of a pine tree. It was actually a gold mine. It was at the very top of the stamp mill, and the ore came from way down deep in the earth, was transported by the ore cars to that bin up there, and then down the chutes into the back of the stamp mill. What they were bringing out of the mine looks like this. This is quartz ore. The red rusty looking stuff is iron. And the miner's saying was, gold rides the iron horse. What that meant was, if there was iron in that quartz, there was a very good chance the gold was riding right along with it. But you had to crush the ore, and quartz is very hard to crush. Each of these stamps weighs between 750 to 1,000 pounds, and it's capable of being lifted by these lobes on the cams about 12 inches, and when it falls, it crushes and pulverizes that ore. And what comes out of this machine looks like this. It's almost as fine as baby powder, and in here are the little flakes of gold that they're after. Okay. Now they add water to this and make a slurry, and that slurry is actually what comes out of the windows here and here, passing through very fine filters. So no large rock was going to get out of the machine. Now, the machine is powered by a water wheel. The water came from the American River about 2 miles away, and that pelt and water wheel turns the big belt, turning the big wheel, turning the camshaft, which raises and drops these rods and stamps. These stamps are going up and down almost 2 times every second. The noise that was in here was horrendous. The men lost their hearing pretty quickly when they worked in here very long. They lost their hearing permanently. But yet it was considered to be a very good job. You could stay topside rather than going down in the mines to make a living. But you knew you were going to lose your hearing as a result of it. Okay, let's go on downstairs and I'll show you a small working model of how it actually functions. This is a model of our 8-stamp mill. It was built by a fellow named Henry Garcia. He was a senior here at the high school in Placerville, and it's a great little working model. I'm going to turn it on. It's going to make a little bit of noise, and here we go. So the ore was crushed and water was added to it, and the slurry ran out these filters and ran over the amalgamation tables. And those tables are slightly sloped so that the slurry would run right down the tables. The top of the table was copper, and onto the copper they would spread a liquid metal, mercury. Now mercury sticks to copper like paint sticking onto a wall, but it does not dry out. The copper holds it in place on that sloped surface, so that when the machine's turned on and the slurry starts running over that mercury, the mercury goes to work grabbing every little speck of gold that's in there. Now, mercury has an affinity for gold. It's something like a magnet and cast iron. The magnet just grabs hold of it. In this case, the mercury grabs hold of the gold. So eventually that mercury becomes saturated with gold, so they scrape up the mercury and the gold and roll it into a ball about this big, about the size of a baseball, and they bring it down into this room. And in this room we're going to separate the mercury from the gold, and we do that in a little device right back there in the corner called a retort. This little thing right here. They put the gold ball down inside that little pot, and they put the lid on this thing, and the lid has a vent pipe attached to it, and it also has a locking ring, sort of like a horseshoe, and they put that locking ring on there very, very tight. They're going to heat this thing up, heat up the mercury, and if any of the mercury vapor gets out of this apparatus and you breathe it, you would get a disease called Mad Hatter's disease. Now, back in those days, the hatters used to use felt and mercury to make the hats, and it made a beautiful hat. The only problem is that the hatters were going crazy. Thus the name Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland. The men that worked in here were coming down with the same symptoms. It was not something you wanted to get. Now they turn on the heat. At 650 degrees, the mercury vaporizes, leaving the gold behind in that little pot. Now the vapor travels down the pipe, and on the outside of the pipe they would be running cold water. And this is what it looks like. The mercury and the gold are here, the amalgam gold. They heat it up at 650 degrees. The mercury vaporizes just like water vapor. The vapors travel down that pipe and they're cooled with a water jacket, so that by the time the mercury reaches the end of the pipe, it's liquid mercury again, and it's recycled right back to the amalgamation tables. What's left on the inside of the pot is 87% pure gold. It's very valuable, but we can't process it anymore here. It has to be shipped to San Francisco for further refining. An ingot would come out of that mold looking like this, and if this were real, it would weigh about 40 pounds. And it's shaped like that so that a man couldn't put his hand around it and lift it up from the floor. Your hand would literally slip right off of it. It was that heavy.